welcome to week 8. It's our last week together, and before we get into our final 2 chapters, I do want to just congratulate you on the amount of work you've been putting in. These last 8 weeks, you've been working through a lot of different strategy lenses that this course has been teaching you to really understand your brand. You've been looking at the customer, the environment, the psychology, the way the brand positions itself, the way it distributes, the pricing logic, all of those things. And it's a pretty big body of work. Now, the last 2 chapters that we're going to cover, there is some final pieces that will be applicable to your final project. So chapter 18 is asking, how does a brand sustain that competitive advantage position over time? And then chapter 20 really gets into the ethical and social responsibilities that come along with being able to influence people. And both of those questions are ones that as a marketer you will face. So let's get into them. So the case that opens in chapter 18 is around Best Buy. And it is honestly one of the best comeback stories in recent retail history. In the early 2010s, Best Buy had a problem that seemed almost like it would end it. Customers would walk into a Best Buy store, find the television or laptop they wanted, ask the staff questions, hold the product in their hands, and then pull out their phones and buy it on Amazon for less. This behavior even had a name. It was called showrooming. Best Buy stores were becoming Amazon's free showroom. The company was widely written off, and Circuit City had already gone bankrupt, and analysts were predicting that Best Buy would follow. But instead, here's what happened. Best Buy made a series of really strategic choices that reframed the question from how do we compete with Amazon online to what can we do that Amazon can't? So the answer was physical presence and human expertise. So Best Buy launched in-home consultations through the Geek Squad, where certified advisors could come to your house, access your setup, and recommend and install products. Amazon cannot do that. They created vendor shop-in-shops, dedicated spaces like inside the Best Buy stores where you could experience Apple or Samsung and Microsoft products with staff who are trained by those brands. They introduced price matching, which removed the entire reason to showroom. So if Best Buy matches Amazon's price, the in-store experience becomes pure upside. So chapter 18 calls this customer value analysis. It's identifying the attributes that customers value most and then evaluating how you and your competitors stack up on each one. Best Buy discovered that expertise, trust, and the ability to get help in person were attributes a large segment of electronics buyers really valued, and that Amazon had a structural disadvantage here. So they competed on those dimensions and built a sustainable position. So chapter 18 organizes competitive strategy around 4 market positions. And I want to walk through them briefly because you will need to place your brand and your final project into one of these for your section H. The market leader holds the largest share in their category and spends most of their energy just defending that position and expanding the demand for it. So think in search engines, Google, in e-commerce, Amazon. Their primary strategic challenge is protecting what they have while keeping that category growing. The market challenger is in 2nd or 3rd place and actively tries to take share from the leader. So Pepsi is constantly challenging Coca-Cola. This is a classic example. Challenger strategies include frontal attacks of the leader's core, flanking moves that attack underserved segments, and guerrilla tactics that create disruption without a full-scale confrontation. Now, the market follower does not challenge the leader directly. They observe, adapt, copy, and often very profitably. Many regional businesses and private label brands operate this way. There's a lower risk, a lower reward. The market nicher has a really small segmented audience that their larger competitor really ignores or undervalues. So niche marketing position, often they'll have extraordinary loyal and a premium pricing power because they go really deep into one specific territory. Vans, the shoes, they built an entire brand around skate and surf culture when Nike and Adidas were focused really elsewhere. Oatly, the oat milk brand, owned that category before it even became mainstream or people knew about that product much. So what position does the brand that you chose fit into those 4 categories? That's going to be on your section H. Now, chapter 20 introduces sustainable marketing. And the Unilever case is the right anchor because it is one of the few examples of a major corporation that treated sustainability as a growth strategy rather than just a compliance exercise. In 2010, Unilever launched the Sustainable Living Plan with a commitment to halve the environmental footprint of their products by 2030, while doubling the business in size. Critics at the time called it pretty naive. What happened instead was that the brands within Unilever's portfolio that were most aligned with the sustainability mission, so Dove, Hellmann's, Ben & Jerry's, Seventh Generation, grew faster than the rest of their portfolio for multiple consecutive years. The lesson is not that being good automatically makes a company profitable. The lesson is that when sustainability is built into the actual product and business model rather than just added on as a marketing communication, it creates real competitive advantages, stronger consumer trust, lower supply chain risk, and easier talent recruitment, and loyalty from customers who increasingly make purchase decisions based on brand values. Chapter 20 does go on to give this ability to consider whether or not products are in a category where they're meeting customer satisfaction just immediately, or if there's a more long-term consumer and societal welfare that is their focus. And there's a lot of good information in there that is useful for your final project as well. I want to remind you that in the course overview, as well as in week 8, there are the final project guidelines. This document is extremely thorough and gives you all of the guidelines for this final project. It's going to give you an overview, the components of what it is, so you have a written marketing strategy plan and a visual pitch deck presentation. You are turning 2 documents in this final project. You want to make sure that you read through this really carefully. It has what each section is supposed to contain, how many points you are given for each of those sections, and which week we worked on that component. You're also going to make sure to understand the way that the integration from course concepts needs to be in your writing. It's going to list for you what I'm looking for in your pitch deck and what the standards are. Obviously, you're going to have different sets of abilities as far as the design. This is not a graphic design class, so I'm not going to be grading you on that. What I will be grading you on is that you have set up and have the slides that I have required. You want to make sure that you look at the grading rubric, which is really clear, the pitch deck grading rubric, and then make sure that you are proofreading for grammar, common mistakes. One thing that I often tell my students is read your written part out loud. A lot of times when you read something out loud, you'll catch something that a document that you've been working on continually, you just don't see it. So read it out loud or have a friend read it, and you will often find things that you don't know. Please make sure you look at what my requirements are around AI. You are to use it, but it's in a specific way, and there's a specific way that you cite how you used it. Make sure that you are turning in 2 documents. Remember, this is a written plan and a pitch deck. Both of those need to be turned into the final project. I even have a revision and a checklist for you to look through before you submit this final project. And reach out before the due date if you have any issues. I would be happy to answer any questions you have, but just let me know. So great work this 8 weeks. You've put in a lot of work and thought, and I cannot wait to see your final projects.